fiction. I was reading my story on the train and I looked over and said, why do I write this shit? So I hope you enjoy my shit. This one is called Red Gravity Boots. The tentacles were warm. So warm that they seemed to burn through her new pink leather flight suit. She hoped they were not actually burning it. It cost 4,000 credits, even after what had been her most successful bargaining to date. Who else had her figure, she had argued? Who else had the curves of a Celestian water pig and the waist of an earth greyhound? No one, he had agreed, and lowered the price by nearly half. She hoped dearly that the ooze that was now coating the soft, airtight elk skin was water-soluble. She knew it would be a pain in the ass to clean, if she got away. I don't have time for this, she yelled to the beast, and slashed another tentacle with her light blade. There was a shriek from below, but even more slimy feelers shot up from the dark towards her. She really did not have time for this, and she was spitting mad about it. Sat Sports Station was having a once-in-a-lifetime sale on gravity boots, and they still had two in her size, and they matched her new suit, and they had heels, and they looked fucking hot. Ever since she saw them advertised in the sale announcement, she had imagined kicking ass in them. She would take off her shaded helmet, smash her bounty in the face with it, and shake out her long blonde curls as they fell bleeding to the ground. Then, before they could get up, she would place one perfect boot on their chest, engage the excess gravity mode, effectively pinning them to the ground, while she read them her warrant. And now, because of this slimy fucking asshole, she would miss the sale. They would run out of her size, and she might even die. She really should have just headed straight for Satsport. But a 15K bounty was hard to pass up. How could she have known that Podrick Elf, arms dealer wanted for 2 murders, owned a love beast? Really? Who risked keeping them anymore? They killed their owners more often than not. It may have been a fad 20 years ago to take a drop of love blood and risk a seizure for a chance at a 10-minute climax. But now everyone wanted cyber ghost sex. Podrick Elk was obviously still into tentacles. Without a constant supply of bioelectrical impulses, love beasts rapidly shrunk in size until they were no larger than an Earth sea anemone. It was far too dark to see just how large this one was, but it must be enormous. She had guessed during her second long's fall through the shaft, under the conspicuously placed rug in front of his desk, that she was falling to her death. How could she fall for a trapdoor? Now, if the darned things managed to touch her skin, she would die a very slow death, without her new boots, drooling from hundreds of orgasms, covered in slime, with absolutely no dignity whatsoever. Since the beast had snatched her out of the air, it had been pulling her slowly down toward itself. She was now just starting to see its looming mass, highlighted by streaks of red bioluminescence. It was huge, and smart too. It held her over the ground instead of bringing her straight to itself. She was glad she had ignored the impulse to slash at the large feeler, currently crushing her perfectly small waist. Now that she was in range of its many shorter tentacles, she was starting to get scared. Fear mixed with rage, and she readied herself for an onslaught of slimy limbs. "I'm ready for you, motherfucker," she yelled and tightened her grip around the hilt of her blade. "Missing, slash, mine, slash, sales," she screamed, taking out 3 of them. The beast howled, and she focused on where the sound came from. That's where she needed to strike if she wanted to kill it. 2 bright red tentacles shot out, much faster than the rest, and she could see these ones had suckers. They slammed into her helmet with a thud and immediately started to pull it off of her. "God damn it," she yelled, and managed to get one of them. It slapped lifeless and hung directly in her view. Her next screams were muffled as the seal of her helmet came up over her mouth. She swung her blade blindly above her head with no luck. It grabbed her arm just as the helmet came free and she heard it fall to the ground. But the ground sounded closer than she thought. But now that it had her weapon arm, she was fucked. It was trying to shake her blade from her hand, but she held it tight. It pulled her closer. She could see it clearly now. It looked like something you might pull out of your nose on a bad day, except with all the glowing in the limbs. The onslaught of small tentacles had stopped, thinking it had won. 2 fat ones were heading toward her face. They pulsed and throbbed with red light. Thinking fast, she wrapped her legs around the large feeler around her waist, ducked and twisted out of the way. She grabbed the one holding her arm with her free hand, and with a surge of fury and madness, she pulled it to her face and bit it. Hot love blood filled her mouth, and she was instantly and desperately filled with every sensation of arousal. She bit harder, severing it, as waves of climax rocked her curvy body. There was no sense to it. She lost all capability for thought, blood dripping from her chin, moaning like an idiot. The beast glowed brighter from its momentary contact with her mouth. Red and pink flashes flashed in her eyes, and somewhere inside of her addled brain, she remembered her perfect boots. The boots she would never have because of Podrick Elt, that kinky shithead. The one who dropped her in this pit. Passionate wrath filled her with purpose, and she slashed madly. Finally freeing herself, she hit the ground, still convulsing from the longest orgasm of her life, and she screamed. The love beast was screaming too, and she pushed herself up into a desperate dash towards the source of the noise. She destroyed every tentacle that came toward her, climbed up onto its disgusting form, and drove her blade deep into its gaping maw, and then back out and into something that looked like an eye. The pit echoed with a high-pitched, gurgling wail. The beast quaked beneath her and then started rapidly shrinking. She rolled off the thing, legs barely functional, and watched it shrivel. The smaller it got, the brighter it became, until it was radiating an extremely painful red light. She turned away from it and could see that she was in a cave, and there was an exit. She stood carefully, still wrought with painful waves of pleasure, retrieved her helmet and headed out, hoping for Podrick Elt's sake that he hadn't fucked with her ship.